When I first moved in with Hannah and Tyler, it felt like a dream. We'd all been friends since college, and after graduation, we decided to split a rental house just outside the city. It made sense financially, and emotionally, it felt like the right move. Hannah was my girlfriend of 3 years. Tyler had been my roommate and best friend since freshman year. We were one of those inseparable trio types. Game nights, group trips, late night talks, we shared everything. For the first few months, things were good, comfortable, familiar. But then I started noticing things, little things. Tyler would be in the kitchen when Hannah got home from work. Not sometimes, every time. I'd walk in to find them laughing about something I'd missed. Inside jokes, glances. He'd say something like, "Oh, you had to be there," and Hannah would just smile. I brushed it off. They were close. We were all close. That's how it had always been. But once you notice a crack, it's hard to stop seeing all the other ones. I started keeping track without meaning to. I knew what nights they both stayed up late watching Netflix after I'd gone to bed. I noticed when Hannah started changing her clothes before coming down to hang out. And when I mentioned it, casually, she laughed and said I was being weird. Said I was getting paranoid from Reddit stories. Maybe she was right. I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend. But then came the night Tyler got a new job offer. He came home with a bottle of whiskey and a dumb grin. I expected him to tell both of us, but instead, he pulled Hannah into the hallway first. Just the two of them. The door was cracked open, and I heard him say, "I had to tell you first." I stood in the living room, frozen. My chest was tight. That night I barely spoke. I watched them celebrate. Watched Hannah hug him twice. I felt like a third wheel in my own house. Later, I asked her why Tyler told her first. She shrugged. Said he probably just ran into her first. But they were alone in the hallway. He called her over. And she knew it. That's when I stopped giving the benefit of the doubt. I started noticing their schedules. Who was home when? How often they went grocery shopping together. Even when I was free. I started feeling like a stranger around them. I'd come home and find their shoes by the door, music playing in the kitchen, food halfway prepared. Once I walked in, and they both looked startled, like they weren't expecting me. Tyler said, "Dude, you're home early," but I wasn't. It was 7th house, my usual time. Hannah barely made eye contact. I started writing things down. Not in a crazy way, just to track what was real and what was in my head. But the list got long. One night, I opened the notes app and counted 17 moments that didn't sit right. 17 times I felt like I was being slowly erased. Then came the morning I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. I was upstairs, heading down, and their voices were hushed, laughing at first, then serious. I heard Hannah say, "He's starting to notice," and my heart stopped. I stayed on the stairs, frozen. Tyler said, "Don't worry, just act normal." I didn't move for 5 minutes. When I finally walked in, they both looked up with those smiles, too wide, too perfect. I sat down, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending I hadn't heard. My hands shook. That day, I called out of work and just drove. Nowhere in particular. I just needed to breathe. I kept thinking, maybe it was about something else. Maybe I misheard. Maybe I misunderstood. But deep down, I knew. Something had changed. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what else I'd missed. In the following days, Hannah grew colder. Tyler, somehow, warmer, like he was compensating. He'd bring home dinner, offer to split chores, crack more jokes, but they all felt forced, practiced. I started checking her phone. I hated myself for it, but I did. Nothing obvious, no messages, no photos, but she'd deleted her recent call logs. Who does that? And she changed her lock screen password. After 3 years of never bothering, one night I confronted her. I asked if something was going on between her and Tyler. Her face went blank. "Are you serious?" she asked. "He's like a brother." I wanted to believe her, I really did. But she didn't answer right away. And her voice shook, just a little. The next day, I noticed Tyler's cologne on her hoodie. She said she borrowed it from the laundry room, said she was cold, but we both knew it wasn't hers. She never wore his clothes, not before. That weekend, I told them I needed space. I stayed at my brother's place across town. I wanted to see what would happen if I was gone. No messages from Hannah, just one. "Let me know when you're ready to talk." Nothing from Tyler. When I came back 3 days later, the house felt different. Clean, quiet. Hannah was asleep. Tyler was gone. But there was a glass in the sink, 2 lipstick smudges on the rim. My heart sank. I went to bed without saying a word. The next morning, I checked the security cam we'd installed by the porch. At 11:47 p.m., Hannah let someone in. Tyler. She didn't look surprised, didn't look nervous. They hugged. He stayed for 43 minutes. That was the end of it for me. The next morning, I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough to stay gone for a while. When she asked where I was going, I told her, somewhere I can think without second-guessing my own reality. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just said, okay. That was worse than screaming, worse than guilt. She let me go like she was expecting it. I stayed with a friend for a week. I didn't answer her texts. I didn't talk to Tyler. I just existed. Numb, detached. But then something happened. On the 7th day, Hannah sent a video. Just a quiet, shaky recording. She was crying. Sitting on the floor of our kitchen, the camera wasn't pointed at her face, just her hands holding the phone. Her voice cracked when she said, "You need to know the truth, all of it." I nearly dropped my phone. She told me it started after her mom died, that she was spiraling, that Tyler had been helping, checking on her, comforting her when I wasn't home. She said one night they drank too much and something happened. Just once. It was a mistake, she said, and we swore it would never happen again. And it didn't. Not physically, but emotionally. Maybe we crossed a line. I was shaking, staring at the screen, watching her hands tremble. She said she didn't tell me because she was scared of losing me, that she hated herself every day since, that she tried to fix it by pretending it didn't happen, by erasing it, by making our life feel normal. But I couldn't pretend anymore when you started seeing it, feeling it. I'm sorry I gaslit you. I just didn't know how to face what I did. That word. Gaslit. Hearing her admit it. It was like exhaling after holding my breath for weeks. She didn't ask me to come back. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just ended the video with, "I'll understand if you hate me, but I never stopped loving you. That part was never a lie." I watched it 3 times. Then I drove home. The house was silent when I got there. She was upstairs in the room we used to share. When she saw me, her eyes widened like she wasn't sure I was real. I didn't say anything at first, just stood there looking at the woman I thought I knew and realizing I still didn't know how I felt. I finally said, "I appreciate your honesty." She nodded, waiting. I sat down on the bed. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to scream. Part of me wants to hold you. I keep going back and forth every 5 minutes. She whispered, "Same." I asked about Tyler's, if he knew she sent the video. She said no, that they hadn't spoken since the night I left, that she told him it was over, the friendship, the closeness, all of it, that she chose me. "But I didn't feel like I had the right to say that to you," she said, "because I already broke what we had." We sat in silence for a long time. Then I said, "I need time. I don't know what rebuilding looks like yet." She nodded. "I'll wait as long as you need." And she meant it. For once I could feel it. There was no script, no performance, just raw regret. In the days that followed, I stayed in a hotel. I didn't go back to the house. But I texted her, not a lot, just small things, safe things. She never pushed, never asked when I'd be back, just replied with quiet warmth. One night, I sat in my car outside the house, watching the lights in the window, wondering what she was doing, wondering if Tyler ever parked outside like this, wondering if I could ever really unsee what I'd seen. I didn't go in, but I stayed there for hours, thinking. Then something unexpected happened. Tyler messaged me. "I'm moving out," it said. "You deserve space." She does too. "I'll be gone by tomorrow." I didn't reply. I didn't have the energy, but I felt something shift. The triangle was broken. It didn't fix anything, but it removed the constant pressure, the suffocation. A few days later, she sent me another message. It wasn't a plea, it was a list of everything she wanted to change in herself, things she never saw clearly until she lost me. I read it 10 times, and then I cried, because that was the woman I fell in love with, the one who could break down every wall if she just stopped pretending she didn't have any. I came back the next morning, quietly. No announcement. I just unlocked the door, walked inside, and for a moment, everything felt like before. Coffee on the counter, her cardigan on the back of the chair, the scent of her shampoo faint in the air. She wasn't in the room. I didn't call out. I just stood there, letting the stillness wrap around me. Then I heard her footsteps on the stairs. Slow, hesitant. She paused when she saw me. No tears, no words, just this small, trembling breath, like she'd been holding it in since the day I left. I didn't say anything either. I just walked to her and pulled her into a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. It was acknowledgement that we'd been through something neither of us fully understood, that maybe the truth wasn't black and white, that maybe the problem wasn't Tyler or trust or even what we feared most, but silence. The silence we both let grow until it choked everything else out. We talked that day. Really talked about the distance, the avoidance, the nights we both felt alone even when lying next to each other. And slowly, painfully, she admitted something I never expected. She never cheated. Not physically, not emotionally, either. But she leaned on Tyler in ways she should have leaned on me. She said it was easier. I wasn't present. I was working too much. Distracted. She missed me and didn't know how to say it without sounding needy. So she found comfort in familiarity, in Tyler. And it grew, not into something romantic, but into something secret. That secrecy. That's what broke everything. Not desire, not betrayal, but the decision to hide instead of confront. She said she wanted to protect me, that she thought it was harmless, but it wasn't, because it made me question everything, not just her, but myself, my judgment, my worth, my sanity. She cried when she said it, not because she got caught, but because she realized how far we'd fallen without even noticing. I listened, and for the first time in weeks, I believed her. But I also told her something that I couldn't just forget, that some part of me still pictured them laughing without me, that every time she picked up her phone, I'd wonder, that I didn't want to live like that. Suspicious, angry, hollow. She nodded. She said she understood. And she didn't beg. She didn't ask me to stay. She just said, "Whatever you choose, I'll respect it." That scared me more than anything, because it meant she meant it. I didn't sleep that night. I walked the old neighborhood, past the park where we used to watch kids sled in the winter, past the corner store with the candy she loved, past the apartment building where we first kissed in the elevator. All those places still existed, but we didn't feel like part of them anymore. We were ghosts in our own story. The next morning, I came back to pack my things. Tyler was gone. She didn't tell me where he went, and I didn't ask. Maybe he couldn't face it. Or maybe she asked him to leave. Either way, the silence was a mercy. She helped me fold my clothes. In silence. Like we were strangers in a shared memory. When I reached for the last box, she touched my arm. "Before you go," she said, "there's something I want you to have." It was a letter, handwritten, pages folded in thirds and worn at the creases. "From Tyler," she said. "He wrote it the night before you confronted us. I didn't read it, but I think you should." I didn't read it then. I drove away with the letter in my jacket pocket, unopened. I thought about throwing it out at a gas station in Wyoming. I thought about burning it. But I didn't. A week later, in a motel room with the smell of bleach and desperation, I opened it. It wasn't what I expected. No defense, no apology. Just this. I never meant to fall for her, and I know how that sounds, like I'm the worst kind of friend. But you need to know something. She never betrayed you. I did. I let the silence grow between us until it felt like space. And she just wanted to be heard. You were her entire world, man, and you still are. Don't let my failure make you forget what's real. I sat with those words for a long time, rereading them like they might rearrange into something easier to hate, but they didn't. Tyler was still the guy who held my head above water when my dad left. He was still the idiot who spray-painted prom on my garage door because I was too nervous to ask her myself. He was also the man who kissed her behind my back. And somehow, all of those things were true at once. I hated that. I hated how life doesn't give you clean villains. Just people. People you once trusted. People who hurt you. People who were hurting too. I spent the next few months in limbo. I didn't text her. She didn't call. Tyler sent one message. Just a dot. No words. Just a signal that he was still somewhere, floating in the wreckage too. I didn't respond, but I didn't block him either. Then last week I saw her at the grocery store, a cart between us. She looked different. Older somehow, or maybe just tired. I almost walked past her, but she looked up and for a second, just 1 second she smiled. Not a hopeful smile, not an invitation, just an acknowledgement of all we were and all we would never be again. I nodded, didn't say a word, just kept walking, and it should have ended there, but it didn't. Because 3 aisles later, I saw her again, not alone, with someone else. A guy. He looks like the kind of man her mother would approve of. Button-down shirt, calm eyes, the kind of shoes that never get dirty. He leaned in to say something, and she laughed. I hadn't heard that laugh in a long time. It used to belong to me. I stood frozen, gripping a box of cereal like it might hold me together. She didn't see me this time, and I didn't want her to. I just watched for 10 seconds, maybe 15. Then I turned away, walked straight to my car, and sat in the driver's seat until the sun dipped low behind the parking lot. There was nothing left to say. No confrontation, no apology, no final scene. Just 2 people who used to know everything about each other. Now strangers passing through the same city. Weeks passed. I didn't mention the grocery store to anyone. I deleted her number. I stopped checking his social media. I told myself it didn't matter anymore, that it was better this way. Cleaner. But late at night, when the world went still, I'd find myself replaying everything. The way she used to pull her sleeves over her hands when she was nervous. The way he always looked guilty after telling a lie, even if it was small. The tiny things. The overlooked signs. And I started to wonder, maybe I had known, not consciously, but deep down. Maybe that's why I kept putting distance between us. Missing dinners, canceling plans. Maybe I'd been protecting myself from the truth I didn't want to face. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. One night, months later, I came home late from work. The house was dark, except for the flickering glow of the TV in the living room. I dropped my keys quietly, not wanting to wake anyone, and walked toward the couch. She was asleep. Alone. Curled up under a blanket, the soft murmur of some old movie playing. I just stood there for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall. Peaceful. Untouched by all the chaos that had been spinning in my head. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something like calm. I didn't wake her. I just sat on the floor beside her, leaned my head back against the couch, and closed my eyes. For a little while, I let the silence hold me. But that was the night I made a decision. The next morning, I woke up early and started packing, not in a fit of rage, not in some dramatic gesture, just methodically. I folded my clothes, boxed up my books. I didn't even cry. I left a note on the kitchen table. Just a few lines. Not blaming her, not accusing anyone, just saying I needed space, that I loved her, but I couldn't keep living like I was walking through a minefield. I didn't want to watch myself crumble trying to protect something that might have already been broken. I didn't know if she'd understand, or if she'd hate me, but I knew that if I stayed, I'd lose myself completely. When I walked out of that house, I didn't look back, not once, not even to see if anyone watched me go. I moved in with my brother for a while, took a few days off work, didn't answer anyone's texts, not even hers, especially not his. I needed time to think, to breathe, to stop hearing phantom laughs from the hallway or imagining whispered conversations behind my back. But silence didn't bring clarity. Just more questions. Did I overreact? Was I paranoid? Or had I finally seen things clearly for the first time in months? Every scenario felt plausible. Every memory felt tainted. I'd replay moments from the past year over and over again, trying to spot what I'd missed. The way she'd defend him in arguments, the late-night chats in the living room, that one weekend they both accidentally fell asleep on the couch. My stomach turned every time I thought about it. Maybe they didn't cheat, but something had changed, and it had been changing for a long time. One night, I drove past our house, just sat in the car across the street, lights off. It was late, around 1 a.m. The living room lights were still on. I saw them, her and Tyler, sitting together, not touching, not even talking, just sitting, like a quiet understanding between them. No TV, no phones, just silence. I watched for 15 minutes, then drove off. That image haunted me more than any embrace or kiss could have. It was intimacy without action, comfort without guilt, familiarity that didn't need explaining. And it shattered me in a new way, because it told me what I hadn't wanted to admit. They didn't need to cross a line for it to be betrayal. I stopped coming home early, started working late, even when there was no work. I'd grab drinks alone, sit in my car, walk through neighborhoods that weren't mine. Anything to avoid stepping into that house. The air inside felt thick, like it knew. Like the walls had watched everything I was too scared to see. When I did come home, I played my part. Smiled, asked about her day, laughed at Tyler's jokes, pretended not to notice when they finished each other's sentences or when they glanced at each other before answering me. I was living with strangers in familiar skins. One night, I walked into the living room and found them watching something on her laptop. Their heads were almost touching. She was laughing in that quiet way she used to with me when everything was still good. Tyler noticed me first. He flinched, closed the screen, said they were just watching some dumb show, but the panic in their eyes, it was real. I stood there, holding a bag of groceries, pretending not to feel my heart cave in, pretending I believed them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, rewinding every second of that moment in the living room. The way she laughed, the way he closed the laptop so fast, the way they both froze like kids caught stealing. I wasn't crazy. I couldn't be. But I still needed proof, something real. So I started checking her phone again when she was in the shower. Nothing. Either she was hiding it better, or I was wrong. But then I noticed something odd in Tyler's room. A notebook on his desk. He never wrote anything down. He was more of a voice note kind of guy. But this one was old, leather-bound, like a diary. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were pages of lyrics, ramblings, memories, And in the middle of all that, my name, crossed out, rewritten. Then her name beside it, over and over. Mia, Mia, Mia. Like he was rehearsing the idea of her, claiming her with ink before ever making a move. It was sick, obsessive. Or maybe it had already happened. Maybe I was just reading the aftermath. I sat on the edge of my bed with the notebook in my lap, heart pounding like a warning bell. Was this a confession? A plan? Or just harmless obsession from a guy who lived too much in his own head? I didn't know. But suddenly, every memory with Tyler felt different. Like I was rewatching scenes from a movie after learning the twist ending. That time he brought her flowers as a joke. The time he suggested she take his hoodie when she was cold. The night he sat too close on the couch, his knee touching hers. I thought it was nothing. I trusted them both. I thought love meant not needing to doubt. But now, I felt like a character in someone else's story. One they were rewriting without telling me. I put the notebook back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront him, not yet. Because I still wasn't sure what I was dealing with. Just fantasies, or something real. But I started watching them more closely. And the more I watched, the worse it got. They'd make breakfast together when I was still asleep. They'd laugh too hard at each other's jokes. Like there was a second punchline, only they understood. Once I walked into the kitchen and they both jumped apart like I'd caught them doing something. But there was nothing, just a half-made sandwich and silence. I tried to convince myself I was paranoid, that the stress was making me see ghosts in shadows. But then I noticed something that broke me in a different way. My hoodie. The old gray one with a torn sleeve and bleach stain on the pocket. It was missing. I thought I left it at the gym, until I saw it hanging on the back of her chair. But she never wore it. Tyler used to ask to borrow it. Said it was perfectly broken in. I stared at it for a long time, and then it hit me. He gave it to her, my hoodie, my scent, my comfort. Recycled into some private exchange between them. That's when I stopped doubting myself. I started digging. I checked her phone one night while she was in the shower. I know that makes me the bad guy. I know it's a breach of trust. But I needed to know. The messages weren't romantic, not directly. But they were intimate. Too intimate. Memes they didn't share in our group chat. Inside jokes I'd never heard before. Photos of sunsets and coffee cups with captions like, "Wish you were here," or, "This reminded me of you." Harmless, if it weren't for the volume, the frequency, the timestamps, every morning, every night. Messages at 3 a.m. when she'd tell me she was too tired to talk. That's when I realized something else. She had never once told me Tyler messaged her. Not once. But he was basically living in her pocket. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the walls were closing in. My home, my girlfriend, my best friend. Suddenly, none of it felt like mine anymore. I didn't confront her right away. I needed more. Not because I didn't trust what I saw, because I didn't trust myself. I kept thinking, maybe I was misreading things. Maybe I was just paranoid. So I watched. I listened. I counted the way she smiled when Tyler was around versus when I was. I noted how she dressed up when she knew he'd be home, and how she barely made an effort for me. I started testing them. I'd pretend to leave the house, then wait outside the door. Listen. Nothing. But the silence was worse. It was like they knew, like they were guarding something. I asked Tyler one night, casually, "Hey, you ever think about dating Mia back in the day?" He laughed too loudly and said, "Nah, bro, she's yours." But I saw it, that flicker, that tiny delay before he answered. It screamed. So I changed tactics. I stopped asking. I stopped watching. I started playing the same game. Cold, calculated, invisible. I installed a small camera in the living room. Just one. I told myself it was for security. But really, it was for sanity. Weeks went by. Nothing. Just boring nights of Netflix, silent dinners, and Tyler walking around shirtless like always. I hated how comfortable he was in our home. Then one night I was out late. Really late. And I got a motion alert on my phone. I opened the app. At first it was just Mia on the couch. Then Tyler walked in from his room. Sat next to her. They didn't touch. Didn't kiss. But the way they looked at each other. God, it was worse. It was intimate. Familiar. Like a whole conversation passed between them without a single word. I watched that clip 10 times. There was nothing incriminating. But it destroyed me. The next morning, I confronted Mia. I didn't tell her about the camera. I just asked if anything was going on. She looked hurt, offended, said she'd never cheat on me, especially not with Tyler. I asked her if she loved him. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't answer. That silence screamed louder than anything she could have said. I walked out. Not out of the relationship, just out. I needed air. I needed to think. I ended up driving for hours, not even knowing where I was going. At one point, I ended up parked outside my parents' old house. It was like I was trying to remember who I was before all this mess. When I got home late that night, Mia was asleep on the couch, still wearing the same clothes. There was an uneaten plate of food on the table, candles burned down to wax puddles. She'd tried to make dinner, like nothing happened, like we were still okay. I stood there for a while, just watching her. She looked peaceful, not guilty, not scheming, just tired. And for a second, I felt like the villain, like maybe I'd driven her away. Maybe my paranoia, my distance, my obsession with proving something had turned her into someone I didn't recognize. I sat down and watched her breathe, wondering if I should just wake her up and talk, or if I should leave again and never come back. I didn't sleep. I just sat there all night, thinking about every little sign I'd missed, or twisted, or invented. Morning came and Mia stirred, opening her eyes slowly, startled to see me there. "You're home," she said quietly. I nodded. "Can we talk?" I asked. She looked nervous. "Of course." And for the first time in weeks, we sat across from each other without sarcasm or coldness. I asked her straight, "Are you and Tyler, is there anything between you two?" She looked stunned, then hurt, then exhausted. "No," she whispered. "God, no, I'd never do that to you." But I didn't believe her, not completely. Something in her voice, in her pause. I wanted to believe, I really did. But belief doesn't erase doubt. It buries it. And sometimes, it grows in the dark. She asked me why I thought that. I told her everything. The looks, the silence when I walked in, the missing jacket, the locked door. She didn't deny the details. Just kept saying I was wrong about the meaning behind them. "Tyler and I, we talk, yes, but because you've been distant, because I was scared we were losing us, I never touched him. I never even thought about it." I stared at her for a long time. And the night of my brother's funeral? Her face broke then, like I'd slapped her. "I was waiting for you. You never came home." Her voice cracked. "Tyler showed up to check on me. He sat with me. That's it. I swear." I wanted to believe her. I did. But something still didn't sit right. I asked her why the door was locked, why the light was off. She said she had been in bed, crying, and didn't want anyone to see her like that. Tyler knocked, she let him in, they talked. Then he left. She locked the door after he was gone. Said it made her feel safer. It sounded plausible. But plausible wasn't the same as true. I asked her why she hadn't told me sooner. She said she was scared I'd think exactly what I thought now. That something had happened. That I'd lose trust in her. I told her that by hiding it, she'd done exactly that. She cried harder. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just sat down and felt the exhaustion roll over me like a wave. She asked if I believed her. I didn't answer right away. I said I wanted to. I really did. I told her I loved her, that I still did, but that my heart couldn't unsee what it saw. That every smile between them now looked different in my memory. Every silence. Every laugh. She said that if I truly loved her, I'd believe her, that love means trust. But I said love also means honesty, and I didn't feel I'd gotten the full truth. She begged me not to throw us away. Said it was a mistake to hide the night from me, but that nothing happened. That I was the one imagining things. Maybe I was. Or maybe she was just very good at knowing what to say to keep me around. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept picturing them. Not even doing anything, just existing behind closed doors, whispering things I'd never hear. Laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. Sharing looks when they thought I wasn't watching. I remembered every time she said she needed air. Every time he conveniently left the room. Every time I brushed it off. I felt like a fool. Like the punchline to a joke I never understood. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. The next morning, I didn't say a word to either of them. I watched them closely, trying to catch anything. A glance, a smile, a slip. But they were normal. Maddeningly normal. Too normal. She asked if I wanted coffee, and he asked if I caught the game last night. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, played along. I needed time, I needed proof. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to. Her phone would light up in the middle of the night, and she'd turn it over. He started doing laundry more often, always just his. But her shirt would somehow end up in the basket. One afternoon, I checked the back seat of his car. There was a necklace, not hers, not mine. Just there. When I asked him, he shrugged, said he'd given a ride to a girl from work. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. Not anymore. That night, she came into our room and curled up next to me. I asked her if she was happy. She paused. Just for a second. But I felt it. That hesitation. That second said more than any words she could have used. She said yes, of course. She kissed my cheek. I kissed her forehead. But it didn't feel right. It didn't feel real. And then I started thinking, what if I was the problem? What if I'd pulled away so much that she found comfort elsewhere? What if I gave her reasons to drift? But then, why not talk to me? Why go to him? I started writing everything down. A notebook hidden in my desk drawer, locked in a box beneath my clothes. Every little thing, glances, texts I glimpsed, overlapping stories, times they left the room together. I was building a case, like a detective in my own home. But the more I wrote, the more I felt like I was the one going crazy. Was I really seeing what I thought I was seeing? Or was I projecting my fear into nothing? One night, I tested her. I said I was going to be out late for work. She nodded a little too fast, smiled a little too easy. I parked around the corner and watched the house from my car. For hours, nothing. Then around midnight, the lights in the kitchen turned on. A shadow passed. Then another. 2 cups, 2 figures. I crept closer, heart pounding in my chest, until I saw it. Her and him, laughing, sharing dessert from the same plate. It looked innocent, but too intimate. Too,